needed at this point to kind of put them not necessarily over the top, but back into the mix in the very winnable NFC East, in my opinion, was a playmaking wide receiver, at least one that they could count on. And after they did that in with Golden Tate, and then especially with the Rams getting Dante Fowler, I think this could put them over the top. That was the one position I mentioned. Samson Ebukam, the edge rusher for the Rams, and he does make some splashy plays, but he's also 245 pounds soaking wet, and so. We saw the Seahawks a couple of weeks ago run the ball down the Rams' throat. We saw the Packers basically trying to do the exact same thing, and we're almost very successful in doing so and winning that game. And I'm looking forward to kind of the way that the Saints are going to go up against the Rams. We'll kind of get to that in a few minutes as well. But to me, that's what was so interesting about today's trade deadline is you did see some teams that you could almost like you were a fly in the room. That you could almost hear the conversation between the owner, the general manager, the head coach saying, hey, if we can bring this player in, this potentially could put our team over the top. And it's just so different than what you see maybe in other sports leagues that sometimes you see teams trade away players just to drop money or to kind of basically have like a rebuilding season. That didn't feel like many of the trades today. This felt about aggressive teams saying, hey, we are legitimate contenders this year and we're trying to get better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, I've been around this league a long time. What happened the last week, and especially today, is the fact that you're right. They're being aggressive. They're like, you know what? And as you're well aware, and I'm sure all the people listening are well aware, it's a short shelf life in the NFL unless you win. Yep. And you got to attack. You got to attack when you can and understand the ramifications of the fact of the salary cap going forward. But it doesn't matter because you want to win now. And that's how you survive in the NFL. You need to have W's, not L's.
Well, I mean that's a perfect segue because unfortunately for then Cleveland Browns head coach Hugh Jackson, as well as his offensive coordinator Todd Haley, they did not get enough W's. And so the Cleveland Browns decided to make a move this week. They have released Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley, and the defensive coordinator Gregg Williams has now assumed the head coaching job. And Scott, I know that you've worked closely with the Cleveland Browns in the past. You were, a consultant with them. And so I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to get too personal. Instead, what I'm asking you to think about is maybe about Gregg Williams as the Packers' new head coach. I mean, you know Gregg Williams. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on him as a possible head coach and what Cleveland Browns fans can hopefully look forward to with Williams as their head coach.
I was around him, quite a bit. All the coaches, you're talking about, and the thing about Hugh Jackson, he's a great person. It didn't work out. So be it. Yeah. The thing with Gregg Williams is he highly intelligent, a very, very good D coordinator, very good. Can interact with football players and get to them, which nowadays is so important. Yeah. He's been a head coach before. I think he's won 17 games as a head coach. It's tough times from the standpoint because I had to fire a coach in midseason and had to name an interim coach, midseason, and it's not easy whatsoever, But the thing about the organization is from the ownership to the GM, they communicate nonstop, and it's awesome, and you need that. Yeah. But they have a good roster. They really do. Now you got young guys, don't get me wrong. Baker, they're young. And part of the process to be a good player in the NFL is learn from experiences that you're not used to. Yep. And, especially a quarterback. Yep. If you saw Pittsburgh the other day, they were blitzing almost every snap, Yeah. And Baker couldn't figure it out. Who's coming where, who's doing this and that. But that's part of the process, and they're going to be a good team. I guarantee it. They'll be a good team when it's said and done. Now, we'll see how Gregg does and how the rest of the season goes, and then what happens in the off season from the standpoint of they hire a new head coach or whatever. But the thing about it is you don't lose sight of, with young people, they don't understand the NFL. Baker doesn't understand. So if also you bring a new offense in, it's like, whoa, okay, so I'm starting over. I got a different voice. I was in San Fran. That's the way it was with Alex Smith.
Yeah,
we had five coordinators in 5 years.
Yeah,
and it's just like, okay, I want to do right, but we're changing everything. We're changing the verbiage, the guy in your ear telling you what play to run, and it's a long process. It really is. And if you get lucky, it's a short process, but that's few and far between in the NFL because, they got enough tape on Baker now, defenses do, that they're going to throw stuff at him that he's never seen.
Yeah.
And to adjust to it is a bear. It's 100 miles an hour. I mean, everything's coming at you. You got to get the play off, first of all, before the game clock goes down. Second of all, you got to identify who's in what coverage and who's doing this. And third of all, you got to make the play, and it happens in 10 seconds.
Exactly.
It's just like, and everybody's like, well, he's not playing well. He's not, it doesn't matter. Any quarterback's the same way, young quarterback.
Yeah.
That's how you learn, and it's a process. It's a long process.
Well, it is, and there are definitely at times where it looks like not only Baker but a lot of these young quarterbacks, it almost like their heads like they're swimming. They're just they're not. The game hasn't slowed down for them yet. So that's kind of what I wanted to kind of go back to because of course you have been in that position to, as you said, to replace a coach, and a lot of the people here, but I want to focus in on the players. And so you mentioned Alex and the fact that he did have those 5 different offensive coordinators. His success speaks for itself. Just about everywhere he's gone, he's helped that team become a playoff contender. You knew that was part of what you, in a previous episode of our podcast, you talked about why you liked Alex better than Aaron, and some of it was just his reliability, his consistency. You felt like you could trust him. With Baker, in your opinion, I personally think that Baker Mayfield is wired a little differently than a lot of other guys. I love the fact that as a former walk-on, he has had to learn different offenses. Obviously at A&M, made the switch over to Oklahoma, had to learn a whole different offense in a week, to a certain extent with the Senior Bowl. Obviously learned a different offense in Cleveland. So to me, he is a little bit more proven in his adaptability, in his ability to change to a different offense than a lot of these rookie quarterbacks have. And I give the example of, say, Jared Goff a couple of years ago. His entire career while at Cal, he played he played in the same system, and so therefore it wasn't quite the transition for him jumping in the NFL. Of course, as a junior, didn't go to the Senior Bowl. That's why I think that Baker maybe has a little bit more of a jump on the typical young quarterback. But Baker better than I do. Do you feel confident that whoever the coach ultimately is brought in long term, and that might just be Gregg Williams and his staff that he brings in, but do you feel confident that Baker has the intelligence and the work ethic to be that guy, assuming that the offense does fit what he does best?
No doubt about it. First of all, it wasn't Texas A&M; it was Texas Tech.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. And there's a lot of Aggies fans and Red Raider fans right now pretty pissed at me. So I apologize. Thank you.
I got you. Nah, you know what? He's legit. I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of good football players in my years. He's legit. He's legit. He can adjust to anything. You know what? And if he doesn't fit what they want to adjust to, he'll find a way to adjust to it. Gotcha. The guy's a football player through and through.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to know, because that's the thing. I mean, anybody trying to guess what's going to happen, with the Cleveland Browns at this point, I think is basically throwing darts at a dartboard. I go back to what the owner, Jenny Haslam, said over and over again in that press conference when they announced the move is that Gregg Williams is now their head coach. They are moving forward. And I think that Gregg Williams is going to get every opportunity to be their head coach moving forward. And again, as you mentioned, Scott, before, with the fact that Williams does have some success as an NFL head coach, he has that experience. He is a leader of men. He does have that personality that a lot of young people can gravitate to. And you talked about the fact that Cleveland does have a pretty talented roster. I'm a big believer, especially in that Cleveland defense. And so I think that, he deserves that opportunity. So I'm excited to see what happens with the Browns. I would not be surprised at all if they win more games over the last 8 than they won over the first 8. And so, therefore, the Browns have a decision to make at the end of this season. It's not just the slam dunk, this guy's an interim coach and we're going to be replacing him. I think Gregg Williams has a shot there. And so I'm very interested to see what unfolds in Cleveland.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing about it is, it's I've been around a lot of teams. It's a good roster. It really is. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, it is what it is. But they have enough talent to win games. There's no question about it. Now, they're young. Yes, I totally understand that, which is fine. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere. And you know what? Gregg Williams, there's a reason why he's been in the NFL as long as he has. There's a reason why he's been a head coach. There's a reason why he's been a coordinator for so many years. Because he understands. Now you see what happens. I mean, it's not all on his shoulders. The players got to play.
Yeah.
They got to produce. Plain and simple. That's what the NFL is all about. You give me the worst coach and the best players, you're going to win. You give me average players and the best coach, you're going to be average. So the players have to step up. The players have to understand that, listen, we're in a tough spot, but we need to win. And that's what they get paid to do. That's their job. That's what everybody goes in every morning to the office. They do their job, and that's what the players have to do.
Well, exactly. And again, that kind of is another perfect segue to kind of, here we are talking about the players that have to do their job to win. Well, a couple of programs that their players consistently do the job at the college football level, as well as then when it comes to the NFL draft and the NFL itself, is Alabama LSU. And, of course, here we are. We're recording this podcast the day before Halloween. And so there's going to be a lot of people out there who are getting their treats. Tomorrow, there's going to be a lot more football fans who are going to be getting their treats this weekend because it is just a terrific weekend of football. Some of the favorite matchups all year long. And again, starting off with Alabama LSU. So I want to just I don't know if you have any stories of all the years that you've been scouting. If you have any old Nick Saban stories or any stories of going into LSU or going into Alabama or any of your favorite players there or just of the rivalry itself. I don't know if you've ever been to an Alabama LSU game itself, but for my money, it's the best rivalry in sports. I love the physicality of these two teams. Now, maybe that will change as different coaches come in at Alabama or LSU, but as long as Ed Orgeron is coaching LSU, I know they're going to run the football down your throat. And as long as Nick Saban is at Alabama, then I know you're probably not going to be able to run the ball down their throat because just the way they play defense there. And so I want to kind of get your thoughts on that. And then I had some numbers here that I was going to mention in a few moments as well about just the number of NFL prospects that these two teams have been sending into the league.
Well, I know. Yes, I've seen the game live. Yes. I finished up Alabama yesterday. Just their defense alone, they have at least 8 guys, at least 8 draftable. They're going to be in the NFL. And that's not, I looked up 2 guys that are both true sophomores. I looked up one that's a redshirt freshman. But besides that, they have at least 7 guys draft eligible that are going to go probably in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Their defensive line, and they rotate now, as you're well aware, nonstop.
Yeah.
They would be as good as half the defensive lines in the NFL right now. right now.
Yeah, just remarkable.